Welcome to a brand new episode of Horror Movie Reviews with Tyler Peters. I'm your host, and you know my name. I've introduced myself. It's Tyler. I'll say it again for an extra scare. It's a special presentation by GeekBuddy.com. Our topic, the selection, is 1999's update of a 1959 classic that starred Vincent Price. However, this is the one that came out in the late 90s called House on Haunted Hill. The film was very interesting, yet very compelling. I know I may overuse these words, but it's appropriate when discussing this film. William Malone directed it, the story by Rob White. Our horrific story begins by telling about the patients that were criminally insane at the Vannacutt Psychiatric Institute in Los Angeles in the year 1931. This sick and sadistic doctor, Richard Vannacutt, betrayed by Jeffrey Combs, was operating on one of the patients. But it was those people who were insane that started the fire. They were getting their revenge on the facility and the good doctor and his medical staff by setting the place ablaze. Only 5 remained, and our story is not finished yet. Millionaire Stephen Price, betrayed by Jeffrey Rush, very talented actor, decided to throw his wife, Evelyn, a birthday party. Little did they know that a spirit, or maybe spirits, there's more than just one, had invited 5 unknown guests, all from various backgrounds, to come to this very haunted residence. Little did they know that their night was only beginning. It was going to be a very long and treacherous night at that. Price offers them $1 million if they can survive. We see Watson Pritchett, betrayed by Chris Kattan, who owns the place. He's had relatives tell him of the horror stories that surround all the mentally insane. All the schizophrenia was a lot of the premise of this plot. We all know they're just crazy. With all due respect to people that have illnesses like that. This was very serious. Hence, what gave it some reality, even though it sure had a lot of the fiction mixed in with it. The spiritual life would still be a threat as more of the story and plot unfolds. See Sarah and Eddie. Eddie's betrayed by Taye Diggs, and Sarah by Ali Larter, as everybody starts searching, looking for clues, evidence, trying to verify what Watson was talking about, meaning these spirits. Is the house alive? A lot of questions that needed to be answered. And we see one scene where Melissa Marr, who was betrayed by Bridget Wilson, stumbles upon this room where the operation of Dr. Richard Vannacutt happened with his nurses. At first, there's nothing that appears to be there until her camera had caught video footage of a dastardly scene. Much like what transpired in the opening scene of House on Haunted Hill, Dr. Richard Vannacutt, with his devious nurses, looked to be operating on the same patient, or at least one of them. It would tease and have you believe. Miss Marr is suddenly taken away. There's blood, but we still don't know if she actually died. So we see a scene where Sarah witnesses Eddie being possessed by this entity, or so she thought. It led her down to this tank of water, where this mysterious something tries to drown Sarah. And Eddie comes to her rescue. She imagined that Eddie was evil. It was all an illusion by this house that breathes life supernaturally. We later see Evelyn is also killed. What happens in some of the scenes, as I'm recalling it, is that Stephen Price goes to one of the workers, finds him mutilated. Dr. Richard Vannicutt's apparition appears, wielding a saw. What happens was Evelyn was asleep in her bed. Price looks concerned, scared, worried, as one might imagine. If that was your wife, your child, a friend, he discovers Evelyn tied up to a medical bed. Electric shock therapy. That's what the doctors would do to the patients. Then Price starts blaming, pointing fingers to all the guests. Eddie and Stephen Price get into a fight, and Price is knocked down. Eddie had won the battle. So for their safety and his safety, they put him in a chamber. But what happens next reveals a lot. Because once they leave, Mr. Blackburn, who's betrayed by Peter Gallagher, would turn on the chamber, much to the horror and chagrin of the millionaire Price. Then he would leave and exit, as Price would start having ghoulish nightmares about patients and all the horrors that would happen in this very dangerous facility. And we come to know in the next scene that Blackburn and Evelyn are lovers. Evelyn had faked her death. They were setting up the millionaire, hoping one of the guests would kill him in self-defense. But what Blackburn doesn't realize is that Evelyn is even more evil and vindictive. She has a knife and stabs him, brutally killing him to death. Sarah and Eddie discover Blackburn decapitated at the chamber. Price escapes, and him and Evelyn have an encounter that lead to Price throwing Evelyn through a decaying door. And this is where we are introduced and find out more about this dark entity called the Darkness that absorbs the souls of those it kills, which would be Evelyn in this case. Price had actually survived what happened. Going back to another scene, is Price was shot by Sarah because she thought he was in on it, but he was just trying to save her. So he wore a bulletproof vest that protected him because she had shot him naturally. But it was Evelyn who thought Price was dead. She was going to kill him, and that's what led to him throwing her through the door and this entity getting her. So Price discovers the dead body of Melissa Marr and then runs as this dark force is chasing him. And then he avoids it and warns both Sarah and Eddie. And don't forget about Watson. Unfortunately for Watson, he gets absorbed in all the spirits. And then we see Stephen Price sacrifice himself to save both Eddie and Sarah. And Eddie and Sarah try to escape. They're trapped. The house is alive, remember? And Watson, his spirit, comes back to help them and lets them out. And they're able to escape through a window in the attic. And then they see sunshine again. They get the $1 million. Everything is all right in the world. They survived, but not everyone. What happens next after the credits is even more horrific. We see both Stephen Price and Evelyn Price, the Prices, trapped in eternity with Dr. Richard Vannicutt and his wicked team of nurses and medical personnel, along with the tortured souls that were trapped in a house on Haunted Hill. So it gave me chills. It was very scary. 3 things I liked. Jeffrey Rush was fascinating. What a performance by Mr. Rush. Evelyn and Stephen's bizarre, strained relationship, love-hate relationship at that. Guests had to remain until the morning to receive that $1 million offer and deal. 3 things not so much that I didn't enjoy as pertaining to the film. Not really even knocks on House on a Haunted Hill. Crazy people who taunt other folks. You better stay away, pardon me, from psychiatric facilities. Something traps you inside, meaning a spirit. No, thank you. But I gave the rating a 7 out of 10 for satisfying meal. It could have went lower, maybe even higher, but I went with the 7 out of 10. So it definitely fulfilled my appetite as far as being a viewer watching it. I wanted to share my perspective, but it's been horror movie reviews with Tyler Peters, and I wanted to change it up and get a little bit more serious and even change my tone of voice because it is Halloween, it is scary, and I was definitely up at night thinking about this film. In any good film, no matter what genre it is, but especially if it's a scary movie, should make us wonder even a little bit. But I hope you've enjoyed it. And once again, my name is Tyler Peters. And on behalf, a special presentation of thegeekbuddy.com. And I'm signing off saying goodbye for now. Hope you enjoyed this horror movie review. And please be scared.